Hello Year 11. We're just going to suspend our curriculum for a while and focus on exam technique, and we're going to return to the question 3, the inquiry question. And obviously this always begins with question 3a, which asks you to study sources. So this question is, how useful are sources B and C for an inquiry into the consequences of the Munich Putsch of 1923? Explain your answer using sources B and C and your own knowledge of the historical context. So success in this question is about following a strict formula, and that's what we're about to do. So this question is asking us to take the role of a historian and to study a source and to find out why it's useful for a certain inquiry. This inquiry is the consequences of the putsch. So the first thing we have to do is read the source carefully, and we have to be able to highlight one or two quotes about the useful information it gives us about the consequence. So what things does the source remind us of, or what can we infer from the source? And now this must be linked to the consequence. So I can find two consequences here. First consequence I can find is that the events of the 9th of November were effective propaganda for National Socialism. So that's a consequence I can explore. Another consequence I could explore is that it revealed that essential preparations have not been made by the National Socialist Party. So I can focus on two consequences that it gives me. And now I can take those two consequences and I can just copy them into my stage 1 box. So from the source I found possible consequences of the Munich Putsch are it results in effective propaganda for National Socialism, and it reveals perhaps that the Nazi Party hadn't done essential preparations. Okay, now we move to stage 2. This is where I've got to use my own knowledge just to comment on these two consequences that I found for the Munich Putsch. And this is where I start to really score marks. So you should have the handout that appears in this middle box. And in this handout, there's lots of information about the Munich Putsch, about the consequences of the Munich Putsch being positive for the Nazis, being negative for the Nazis. So you should be able to use this information sheet to find information that would support our quotes about the accuracy of the claim that a consequence was it was effective propaganda, or information that would support the validity of saying that it revealed the Nazis weren't well prepared. So I should be able to jot some of my own knowledge to prove to the examiner I know things about the Munich Putsch and its consequences, and those things allow me to recognise the legitimacy of the stuff in the source. That's our next task. Okay, so now we've found our quotes, we've found evidence that would suggest those quotes make valid points about the consequences of the putsch. The final thing we have to do to earn maximum marks on this question is make some comments about the nature, origin and purpose of the source. And we do that by recognizing the attribution. And the attribution is always the information the examiner puts next to the source. So the attribution in this instance is source B from Hitler's recollections of the Munich Putsch given in 1933. So we've got to work with that information. So the way we work with the information is we consider the nature, what is it, the origin, when was it produced, and its purpose, why was it produced? And do the answers to these questions affect the usefulness of the source? There are no right or wrong answers. You just have to think of legitimate points to make. So in this example, this is Hitler's recollections. So Hitler was involved in the Munich Putsch. So he gives us an insider view. So that does have some value. But because it is from Hitler, and he produces this recollection 10 years after the putsch, there are some problems. He would obviously only really be focusing on the positive consequences of the putsch. Indeed, he makes no reference to his imprisonment or the death of Nazis or the violence on the streets of Munich or the fact the Nazi Party was banned. So again, the fact it is from Hitler is a limitation in that sense. So those are the kind of things we need to write. So now we've done these 3 stages and we've got our quotes, we've got our own knowledge, and we've got something to say about the nature, origin, and purpose. We can use this writing frame to produce quite a sustained and detailed paragraph evaluating how useful this source is for an inquiry into the consequences of the Munich putsch. And that is your task, basically. So after we've done all this prep, you need to write up your findings about Source B using this writing frame.